wave if you can hear me. Cool, thanks. So Tim Singleton, who's going to talk in a few minutes, and I did rock, paper, scissors. And I don't know if I won or lost, but I'm going to talk a little bit about Joko Polizzo. Joko Polizzo was founded 50 years ago by Ellen Conroy Kennedy because she wanted a little culture in her life because she moved here from New York City. And at that point in 74, Columbia was kind of muddy and there wasn't a whole lot here. So Ellen founded it, and the first reading was Carolyn Kaiser and Lucio Clifton, which was a really good way to launch that program. And she, for 50 years, Joko Polizzo has been bringing writers to Howard County audiences and sponsoring organizations like this one. And a bunch of other things. We have had Nobel laureates, we've had National Book Award winners, and we have a number of events. You'll see one on your chair. Sean Hewitt is coming to the Irish Evening. So we are very grateful to all of the people who worked on Joko Polizzo to bring all those incredible authors here. And so thank you for your attention. And please come and join us at our readings. We have the Irish Evening, but we'll also be at Books in Bloom. We'll have an anniversary reading in the fall, and we have a Blackbird Poetry Festival in conjunction with the community college. So come and see us. So as Sarah very kindly said, I'm Susan, and I was a writer for the late, great Columbia Flyer. I'm going to say give it its funeral because it's not really the same. The Flyer was the Baltimore Sun's only competitor, really. And there was a big, Tim will remember this, huge competition. There were billboards. That's right. We'll put your ad where the sun don't shine. That was a good one. That was, I believe, was that Tim's? Was that yours? So anyway, Mike Clark was a reporter for The Sun and the Howard County Bureau for 25 years. And I distinctly remember a new reporter coming into the newsroom, and she came in after a long day, and she sat down, and Maria Arcangelo, she said, "Oh, I am so frustrated." "What's going on?" She said, "I sat in a courtroom all day, and there was all this evidence introduction and legal blah, 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 blah." And she said, "And then this big guy pokes his head in the courtroom and goes like this to the prosecutor. He goes out in the hall, and I know he's going to get a scoop." And we all laughed, and we said, "You have just met Mike Clark." Mike Clark, thank heavens he used his powers for good, because he was the most amazing persuader and reporter. One of my favorite Mike stories is that he uncovered this 8-year history of the Howard County Court deputies doing Nazi salutes, and then he covered their firing. He also wrote equally passionately about sidewalks and corruption and zoning and school budgets. He was just this amazing, compassionate, and thoughtful reporter and writer. And he wrote poetry too, because Mike came and read for Joko Polizzo audiences a number of times, and we loved having him around and listening to his words. And over the years, Mike did this to me several times, and you just never ignored it. Phyllis is laughing because she knows. Mike asked if I would help start this magazine. He asked if I would copy edit the magazine. He asked, "Oh, what are you reading? And why don't you try and interview that person?" And he just always wanted to know what you were reading, what you were writing, and he cared so much about the power of words. I know that Lois and Kelly are here, his family, and we are thinking about you. I have written a few interviews for Little Tucson Review, and many of them have talked about the writer in residence for Hoko Polizzo, which is a writer that goes into the schools to let public school students know writers are here. Writers are not old and dead and white, and writers are here. And this time, I have interviewed a man named Tope Folarin, who lives in DC, and he describes his life as the craziest kind of whiplash. And if you read the piece, you'll understand. Let's see, let me just throw out a couple of the things that fit in his story. Oprah Winfrey, the Kane Prize for African Writing, working at Google, getting a Rhodes Scholarship, and growing up as one of only 2 black men, well, black boys at that point, in an all-white Utah neighborhood. He uses his life as grist for his fiction, and he tells his creative writing students to do the same, and he'll tell the high school students that he speaks with to do that as well. Find your voice. His first novel, A Particular Kind of Black Man, started as a coming-of-age memoir and then kind of became a fictionalized story of his life. But it is a novel. He told me, I distinctly remember when he diverged from the main character, which was a really interesting moment to recognize as a writer. The book won the Whiting Prize for Fiction. And according to the New York Times Book Review, I'm going to read this because it's a good one, the novel is wild, vulnerable, lived, a study of the particulate self, the self as a constellation of moving parts. So Tope will serve as the Bowder Writer in Residence for Hoko Polizzo this academic year. And he's also the director of the Institute for Policy Studies, the Lannan Creative Writing visiting lecturer at Georgetown, and a massive Star Trek fan. I'll just throw that out. So he'll visit high schools all this year, and he'll talk to them about finding your voice, which I loved. So here is just a little snippet from his book. At night, my parents held each other close and spoke their dreams into existence. They would have more children. My father would start a business. They would become wealthy. They would send their children to the best schools. They would have many grandchildren. They would build their own version of paradise on a little slip of desert in a country that itself was a dream, a place that seemed impossible until they stepped off the plane, shielding the sun from their eyes, and saw for themselves the expanse of land that my father had idly pointed to on a fading map many years before. So I'll give you a hint. His parents' dreams didn't come true quite like they thought, but Tope says that he really manifested his own dream. So I encourage you to read it, and I encourage you to read his novel. Thanks so much.